Right now, I am using my powers of telepathy to transmit a very important message about this video. But in case it doesn't work via the internet, this is an analysis of X-Men First Class. It will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen that already, you may want to watch the film first and then come back to this video afterwards and let me know what you think then. Now, X-Men First Class is a 2011 film telling the origin story of the Mutant Training Academy. It tells the story of Charles Xavier, who is later known as Professor X, and Eric Lenzer, who is later known as Magneto. It shows their different childhoods, how they came together, and how they go their separate ways. Now, what I believe the story is a representation of how our childhood events could affect how we are in later life. It affects how we see the world and the people around us. And it does this primarily through Charles Xavier, Eric Lenzer, and also Raven, who is later known as Mystique in the X-Men universe. Now, first comparing Xavier to Lenzer. Xavier grew up quite well off financially. He lived in a mansion. They had a maid. He went to Oxford University, so he's quite well educated. His mutant powers are mental, mind reading, telepathy, mind control. His physical appearance is that of a typical human being, so he's never had any issue when it comes to blending in. He, on at least some occasion, uses his powers to gain advantages with women, and he's had pretty much the typical good life, and we can ascertain that his experiences, or at least the majority of his experiences with humans, have been mainly positive experiences. Whereas with Lenzer, now Lenzer was in a concentration camp from a young age. His mother was forcibly separated from him and then later killed in front of him. He later states that he was a lab rat, as in being experimented on, and that he's been at the mercy of men following orders. And we also learned that his parents' name was taken away from him. So from that, we can ascertain that Lenzer has mainly negative experiences with other people. And it's not really surprising that he has a huge disdain for humans, one which I don't think Xavier fully understands. At one point, Xavier said that he's looked inside Lenzer's memories and felt his agony, but ultimately he didn't live it. And because he's had mostly positive experiences with people, he wants to believe that deep down everyone would do the right thing. He wants to protect that, which is what forms the basis of their different opinions, and the reason why, although Xavier has the ability to, he doesn't just go inside Lenzer's mind and manipulate him, even after Lenzer makes it abundantly clear that he has every intention of killing Schmidt. For example, towards the end of the film, Xavier had no real reason to stay behind in the ship, but his act of staying behind is to show that he trusts Lenzer and that he believes that the good will ultimately triumph over the anger. But as we see, it doesn't. Lenzer's anger is so deep-rooted that even after discovering Xavier and the other mutants and realizing that he's not alone, even after Xavier unlocks the memory of his mother, the memory that he'd forgotten he had, a memory that brought him to tears, after all of that, he still puts on the helmet to block Xavier's telepathy because he believes he needs to take revenge and he cannot risk anybody stopping him. Now, looking over at Raven, who by the end of the film joins Lenzer, leaving her lifelong friend Xavier after he'd just been shot. Now, at the time, a lot of people, or at least a lot of people in the internet circles that I tend to hang around in, felt that that made no sense for her to leave her lifelong friend, someone she'd known her whole life, to side with somebody who she'd only really just met. But I think it made perfect sense. Raven is somebody who is looking for acceptance. When we're introduced to her, she's 10 years old and she's broken into the Xavier home. From there, we know she stays with the Xaviers. Now, that tells us two important things. One, she's homeless, and two, that she's parentless. Now, we don't know how long for and what the exact circumstances were. As a guess, I'd say it was some kind of parental abandonment, likely due to her natural blue state. However, whatever the circumstances were, it was long enough and bad enough for her to resort to breaking into houses. Now, add that to her natural blue form, someone who is trying to fit in, but has an appearance that frightens people. Her first words when revealing herself to Charles Xavier show that she's become accustomed to people being scared of her. This would count as a form of childhood trauma, having to deal with people being afraid of her natural state. And although then grown up with the Xaviers in relative comfort, her self-esteem issues remain undealt with. She's gotten by disguising herself because she doesn't believe that anybody would actually accept her natural state. until Eric Lenger. Even Charles Xavier hadn't fully accepted her natural form. On 2 occasions, he was either reluctant to give straight answers or embarrassed by it. And as she begins to deal with her own self-esteem issues, trying to convince Hank McCoy that he didn't need the serum to alter his appearance. Hank then insisting that she'll never be seen as beautiful in her natural state, and that she's only beautiful when she's hiding. She cries because she wants to accept herself and needs someone else to accept her, and that didn't come from McCoy, it didn't come from Xavier, but it did come from Eric Lenger. So by the end of the film, when the mutants make a decision about who they side with, Raven chose to go with the one person who truly accepted her, the one thing she spent her life looking for. Now, a lot of what I said does fall into the realm of psychology. Now, disclaimer, I am not a psychologist. I am not qualified to give any kind of professional opinion on psychology. However, I do know someone who is.
Our beliefs are formed in childhood, and our beliefs come from other people, you know, so like our parents, our teachers, our peer group, the media, and by the age of 14 our beliefs are pretty much polished off. So when we reach adulthood, our whole belief system and our self-image is like a collection of what other people have said to us, how they've treated us, their attitudes towards us. And if these beliefs are not brought to the surface and brought to our awareness, they can literally last a lifetime.
Thank you, Helena, for the input. Be sure to check out her channel as well. Lots of good videos on self-improvement and helping to find a good life balance. So with all that said, what I think the overall message of the film is that our childhood would always be the place that we go to find our most basic fundamental principles on life and how we perceive the world and the people in it. So that's what I think of X-Men First Class. But before I end this, there's one other thing that I'd like to talk about in this film, and that is Raven and her shape-shifting abilities. Now, there is a scene where Raven is bench pressing and Eric Lenger walks up to her and points out that because she is hiding in a Jennifer Lawrence form, that if she is using half her concentration to look normal, that she may miss the things going around her. Points out something that can save her life. Now, in that scene, we see that her clothes do not change when she shifts back into her natural state, meaning that her clothes do not take on her ability to shapeshift. Now, there are various scenes where she is shapeshifting and her clothes changes along with her, which means she has the ability to mimic clothing. However, if she is only mimicking clothing, then doesn't that mean that she is naked throughout most of the film? But that's not really what I want to point out. The scene where Xavier is showing them the jumpsuit and they ask, do we really have to put this on? Xavier says, well, since none of us have mutated to withstand extreme G-force or be riddled with bullets, he suggests that they do wear them. So they put on these yellow jumpsuits at that point. A bit later on, when Beast is fighting with Azazel, we see Raven shift into Schmidt. And then they'll tell Azazel to stop. And when she changes back into Raven, her clothes changes back to the yellow jumpsuits. So, does that mean that the yellow jumpsuits take on her ability to shapeshift? Or does that mean somebody screwed up somewhere? And that is my analysis on X-Men First Class. Let me know if you agree or if you disagree. If you liked this video, please click like, share and leave a comment. The next film I plan on doing is Toy Story 3. Be sure to check it out if you haven't already. It's a fantastic film. Plan to have that ready in about a week-ish after this video goes live, so make sure you subscribe if you haven't already to be updated for that. Be sure to check out Helena Haze Channel for more awesome videos there. Thank you for watching, and until next time, if this works, you'll be receiving an awesome message in your mind right now.